My guest today is Shaun King from the VISN Network out in Las Vegas, a former Super Bowl winner, college quarterback, Heisman hopeful, and as I said now, a broadcaster with the VISN Network. It was an incredible conversation with Shaun. Insight was always interesting. Also, wait for the end where he has some interesting things to say about Sam Howell. If you liked this episode, make sure to follow the Big Douglas Show. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think. We'll always like that. And now, without any further ado, my interview with Shaun King. All right, Shaun, I appreciate you hopping on the podcast today. From Florida to Vegas, I'm curious, how would you describe Vegas to somebody that's never been before?
It's actually a pretty amazing place. Of course, everything that the world knows exists here. Like if you're like into any kind of entertainment, I mean, whether it's performers, that sing or that do comedy or that, all kind of shows. I mean, it's got anything that you could want from an entertainment standpoint. To me, it's the best dining in the U.S. of A, not necessarily because it has something that culturally is specific to Vegas, but because of the level of competition, nothing really can sustain itself out here if it isn't top shelf. Food quality, service, and those kind of things. If you're into being around the pool, Vegas definitely has some of the best pool setups in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really nothing that the city doesn't have. The only thing we don't have in abundance is water. So like natural water. So if you're a person that likes to jet ski or take your boat out, you're probably going to be extremely limited in that capacity. But other than that, man, if you're looking for it, Vegas has it.
How long did it take you to get used to the heat? It's a different kind of heat out there. You're from South Florida originally, if I'm not mistaken. Difference in humidity and no humidity, right?
So St. Petersburg, Florida. So that's kind of central, like right there in the little insert. So I had lived in Vegas in 2007. I played about 4 or 5 games for the Las Vegas Gladiators. I played for the Arizona Cardinals in 2004. So I had been in this climate, multiple times before. So we were actually having a great summer, man. I mean, so far, so good. I mean, it stayed cold until basically late April, early May. But, I mean, it's been beautiful so far. And normally in June, I mean, it's really hot.
Now, when you say cold, what are we talking about here?
Oh, it was freezing. It got cold
around.
Okay. It got cold around October last year, and it stayed cold all the way to late April. We even had probably about 12, 13 days of snow over that time period. So, yeah, pretty extreme for Vegas, but, we deserved this good weather because it was cold for a long time.
I hear you. Now, you ended up at Tulane. That was an interesting coaching staff, at least on the offensive side of the ball, right?
Yeah, and that was the coaching staff that got there going into my junior year. Initially, it was Buddy Tevens, and prayers to Buddy Tevens. I know he got in an accident riding his bicycle not too long ago, so prayers to, Coach T. But, yeah, the staff that came in, when Tulane parted ways with Buddy was Tommy Bowden and Rich Rodriguez. And, of course, those are household names now that have gone on to do, great things.
What did you learn from those guys? What was the offense that they had there, that same Rich Rodriguez style offense?
Yeah, Rich came from a place called Glenville State.
Okay.
I think it's a D2 or 3 in West Virginia. He was the head coach, AD. So it's one of those kind of situations. And I want to say that we brought the spread offense to college football. So you already had the run and shoot, which we had seen. Houston Cougars, that was Andre Ware, David Klingler, but no one was really running the spread as you see it now. Where you spread the field, but it's still 50-50 run pass for the most part. You got some zone read elements in there. Unless I'm wrong, and somebody, show it to me, visually, we were the first Division 1A football program to be running this kind of offensive system. And, that's all Rich Rodriguez. Because Tommy Bowden, he was with his dad, he was, and when Charlie Ward was at Florida State, you started to see some 2-minute offense, but at its core, the Bowden family is an I formation, run the football, play great defense, kind of a family.
Yeah. Why do you think it took so long before they were willing to integrate some of those systems into the NFL?
Well, because of what they thought the quarterback was supposed to look like.
Right.
For so long, the quarterback was supposed to be 6'4", stoic, stand in the pocket, throw the ball under duress. It wasn't supposed to be the 6'1" athlete that could run the ball and create out and extend plays. That just wasn't what the quarterback position looked like early on in the game of football. And really, the NFL has only evolved and changed. They don't have a choice. I mean, because if you're sticking to the old guidelines for the position, you'll never have a quarterback, because all of the kids coming out of college ran spread systems in high school. They're all running spread systems in college. So the NFL's hand was kind of forced in this situation.
A lot of that is because of the 7-on-7 stuff that they're doing now?
I don't think so. I really think the spread system came about because it's so hard to find big guys. And so the spread allows you not to have great offensive linemen per se. You don't have to have an NFL tight end, and you can still run the ball effectively. You don't have to have a pro quarterback to have a successful passing game, because there's so many screen elements, put into a traditional spread system. So it masks some of the deficiencies that most college programs have, which is a lack of really good big guys.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about like that. It's tougher to make the jump from high school to college, or from college to the pros?
I think it's high school to college, simply because more guys make the jump. I mean, the guys that are getting drafted are the cream of the crop. Like, it's right. 32 teams, 7 rounds. So you're talking about less than 220 players per se coming out of a pool of probably 3,000-4,000 annually. So you're getting the cream of the crop. Whereas in high school, I mean, you're getting the top player from a whole lot of different areas, but those areas vary in the level of competition that player is going up against. So when he gets to college, I mean, those bodies are more developed. The opposition is more talented, higher football IQ. So I would say high school to college, only because the guys that actually get drafted are the cream of the crop.
Do they have a problem with the way the current NIL system is set up?
I don't think NIL is a problem. This is something I remember when I first got into broadcasting. I was doing I don't know if it had turned into the American Athletic. I think it might have still been old Conference USA when that had Houston and Cincy and all those teams were still in Conference USA. And I remember sitting there at the dinner with the coaches, and I told them, I was like, why don't, and this had to be about 2000, I want to say around 2008 or 9 had to be the time frame. And I remember telling them then, I was like, I just don't know why the NCAA won't make it legal for guys to capitalize on their name, image, likeness. And my reasoning behind it was, for some of these guys, this is the highest their brand is ever going to reach. And if you're in a college town and you are All-American or All-Conference linebacker, but you're not an NFL caliber talent, why shouldn't you be able to make a deal with the Ford dealership in town, or with the Waffle House chain of restaurants, and capitalize on the success you've had at that level? And man, I've never been cussed at without anybody using cuss words before. But this, man, if you could have saw, because I'm at a table with all the head coaches in the conference, and they were so adamantly against NIL. It wasn't NIL then. I actually called it name, image, likeness, and it was an absolute hell to the gnaw. And now you fast forward, we sit here, and it's the most prominent part of ascertaining high school talent, of gaining traction and leveraging the transfer portal. And it's something that should have been in place a long time ago. I do not, to answer your question, I don't have a problem with NIL. I think the collectives are more the issue. But I will say this, I don't think NIL should pertain to incoming freshmen. I do think you should have to have done something at the college level to capitalize on the NIL deal. I don't think it should be used as a part of attracting high school talent.
Is it important, and maybe they are already doing this, and I'm just not close enough to know, but it feels like they, at least on some level, also need to have business managers just as much the way that they do the training staff, right? Like, I mean, the universities should be providing that for these kids who have probably not had a ton of experience with money at all. Are
So
they
most,
doing that? They certainly should be.
yeah. So most of the major programs, I don't know, just for budget reasons, if it's trickled down to maybe some of the mid
Right.
majors, but the high end programs all have hired a position, and that person only responsibility is to be the go between the collective and the athlete, the NIL and the athlete. But again, some of these NIL deals, you can go directly to the family. You know, the thing that I don't like about it is the coaching staff can't actively be involved in it. And to me, that's a huge misstep by the NCAA, because one of the things that I promised families, if you allow your son to come here, we're going to help him develop on the field and off the field.
Right.
How can I help him develop in that area if I'm not allowed to be privy to the information and get involved in it? So, like with everything in life, there's some pros, there's some cons. Um, I think the transfer portal right now, if you poll most coaches, is more worrisome to them
Right.
than NILs, because they don't have to deal with the NILs. The kids may get them, but they're not the ones doing that. But they are very concerned about being responsible for developing players, and then having major programs come and just kind of free agent my roster per se.
You put in all the work, and then somebody else gets the
Right.
rewards. I hadn't looked at it that way. I see you've had an interesting career. You've done broadcasting, like you said. You're at VISN now. You've done the coaching. Obviously, we're a player. We'll get a little bit to your Bearded Buccaneer T-shirt there, but I'm curious, did you have a favorite of the group?
Of course, playing. I mean, it's always going to be number one. I mean, there's nothing as organic as the game of football. There's just a physicality to it that doesn't exist in any other sport, where like you get paid to impose yourself on another man. So, I mean, that part of it, I mean, it's just a special thing, when you're successful.
Is there a beauty in the game?
Absolutely.
Opposite of the roughness.
I think the fact that the skill sets are so varied, yet collectively they have to mesh in order for you to have ultimate success. Like, because what an offensive lineman needs to do to be at his best is completely different than what the quarterback needs, which is completely different than the wide receiver. I mean, in basketball, hell, everybody got to figure out how to dribble, shoot, and play defense, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, in baseball, it's all about, okay, can you hit a curve and a fastball? Defensively, can you catch and field the ball? Like, it's just the nuance that goes into a great NFL or college football product is so diverse. So just seeing it all come together is a special deal. I will say this: second on the list would be broadcasting.
Okay.
And then last on the list would be coaching.
Coaching takes up a lot of time.
Man, there's just no loyalty in that business. No loyalty in that business at all. It's a lot of great coaches that do a great job that are unemployed at the end of the season for varying reasons. Your coach gets a promotion, goes somewhere, doesn't want to bring you. Your coach gets fired, new guy comes in, doesn't want to keep you. The university wants to go in a cheaper, less expensive direction. So no matter, it's a lot of BS in that field.
It's funny, we were talking about football and some of the beauties of it. I think one of the points also is the size difference. You were talking about basketball. Pretty much everybody's 6'4", 6'5", and over. I think the casual fans, once you strip the pads off and see an offensive lineman standing next to a safety, would be dumbfounded by the difference in size, right?
Yeah, it is. But again, that's the positions are so specifically, detailed and kind of individualized. Like it's not like other sports. Well, baseball probably could say, because you got your middle reliever and your closer, your starter, like that. There's some different skill sets, but football's unique, man. It's a great game. I think the parity that exists in the NFL is why the NFL is king. Like, legitimately, every fan base every year, if they had a great offseason, has a chance to go from worst to playoff because of the hard salary cap. So no one can outspend someone else. And there aren't any ways around it. Like, for instance, the NBA has a cap, but there are ways around it to circumvent it. You know, baseball just is, you know, that's whoever can spend the most. I mean, the disparity between what the Oakland A's spend and what the Dodgers, Mets, and Yankees spend is like, you know, come on, you could build like 150,000 Walmarts in between the two payrolls, you know?
Yeah.
NFL, everybody on the same budget. So now it's about management, it's about culture, you know, so that's why I think NFL is king, because all 32 teams, like their Chicago Bears, based on what they did this offseason, their fan base looks at the NFC North and says, you know, hell, why can't we win the NFC North?
That's
Jacksonville 2 years ago, where Urban Meyer dumpster fired. Following year, Doug Peterson, they're in the playoffs, win a playoff game. So, like, you know, that's the thing about the NFL that I think is extremely rare when it comes to professional sports.
Why is it seemingly so difficult for the college coaches to make the I won't say jump, just to transition to the NFL? Because I'm thinking off the top of my head, and I can't think of one that worked.
Well, a college coach is a deity. He's a god.
Yeah.
Like, nothing operates, nothing moves without his approval and say-so. Like, no matter what it is, if it pertains to football, he's the head honcho in every aspect. Budget, acquisitions, firings, player development, but everything goes through him. In the NFL, hell, the head coach is just an employee. He's a high-profile one, but he's just an employee. He's not necessarily. He doesn't have the final say-so on who we bring in. He don't have the final say-so on who we cut, on who gets paid. Like, so you have to have a different mentality to be a head NFL coach than you do a college one, because college is my way or the highway. NFL is more teamwork. It's more being goal-oriented with the group. You know, it's sharing the accolades that come with success. It's accepting all the accolades that come with failure, knowing that you didn't play a key role in some of the things that are going to dictate, you know, the outcome. So that's why a lot of college coaches struggle.
Tell me a little bit about Super Bowl 37.
So that's us in Oakland?
Yep, that was the Gruden Bowl.
Yeah, I damn near can't count using regular numbers. So when it comes to that Roman numeral stuff, I'm completely lost. I just feel like we were the better team. Now, we had some built-in advantages, and that Callahan ran the same system that, you know, Gruden had run when he was there. And, you know, Gruden taught Gannon the system, and they were kind of doing the same things. But, I mean, at the end of the day, we were in our prime, and I think Oakland was an older team. And that was one of those years where there wasn't a week in between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl. We played the NFC, AFC championship game. That following Sunday was a Super Bowl, you know, so it was a lot of things happening. I know they had an offensive lineman. I think was Barrett Robbins got lost in Mexico or something. I mean, they had a lot of stuff going on, man. Yeah, I think the punter, you know, got in a fight in the club or something. They had the kicker or something. They had all kind of stuff going, man. And meanwhile, like, we had 4 freaking Hall of Famers on our defense, man. Warren Sapp, John Lynch, Ronnie Barber, Derek Brooks, all in the Hall of Fame. So, like, when people talk about best defense in NFL history, man, I don't know how you get around that Tampa defense. I mean, we were the better team.
For Tampa too. I mean, literally, the defense is named after the group now, right?
And no one else has ever been able to successfully run the Tampa 2, because it wasn't the scheme; it was the personnel.
Yeah. Sapp doesn't get enough credit, does he?
Well, he was NFL MVP, so he gets his just due. A lot of people just don't like 9-9. You know what I'm saying? So
that's fair.
You know, once you finish, it's a popularity contest. If they like you, like, even if you were an average player, like, they're gonna big up your career. If they don't like you, you could have been like an all-time great, and they're gonna minimize, you know, your impact. So you know how this thing goes.
That's so true and fair. Look, you're out in Vegas now doing VISN with the hometown guy, Tim Murray. Have you always been into gambling? How did you end up at VISN?
A guy named Ron Flatter. I'm big into horse racing, and
that's a wild sport now.
I know, yeah. Advice: don't get into horse racing, especially now. It's too many things that you can't control, like especially with all the doping and all this stuff they got going on now, man. It's just a racket. But I'm big into horse racing. I had met Ron Flatter, who was working at VISN, and I had done like a Kentucky Derby preview for him. And then me and the family came on vacation, maybe late June, I think it was. And Ron was like, "Why don't you come over, and do a segment on one of the shows?" And it ended up being Tim Murray's show, and we hit it off. And next thing I know, I was talking to Brian Musburger, and now we got me and Tim going on year 3 coming up soon, being together. So everything's going great. Happy to be here. Hopefully, be here for a long time.
It's interesting with the gambling, and as the stigma goes less and less about gambling and more opportunities and ways, the league's got a problem. I mean, they're suspending these guys. Are they being too stringent with the way that they're kind of regulating it, or are they just not educating the players properly on what the rules are?
I mean, I don't know if they have a problem. I just think anytime one of their employees, does something outside of whatever boundaries the NFL has set, it gets a big story. But I mean, what have we seen? Calvin Ridley and then 3 Detroit Lions players? I mean, how many players total are there in the NFL? So
sure. Yeah.
Right. So it's not like, 250 have gotten suspended, So I just think with anything, man, it's going to be trial by fire for some guys. The NFL does a lot of continuing education on gambling and the do's and don'ts and the signs, for addiction and all kind of stuff. But I mean, it's the same thing when they talk about drinking and driving, or when they talk about, performance enhancing drugs. Like, no matter how much messaging you put out there, there's still gonna be a couple guys that kind of got to go touch the stove. They're telling you that if you put your hand on that damn burner now, it's gonna burn your skin. But there's gonna be a couple guys that are always gonna go touch the stove anyway.
Yes, there is. Let's wrap up with a little Commanders talk. EB is in DC now. Still no head coaching opportunities. It's odd. We get to listen to him at the mic now. He's pretty much done. He's pretty much taken the lead here for the off-season type stuff. He sounds like he's got the goods. Why still no head coaching opportunities for Bienemy?
Well, because most owners are dumb when it comes to football. They're brilliant when it comes to whatever career they chose that have allowed them to acquire this kind of wealth. So they're experts in that. They're experts in how to manage money, how to build businesses. But when it comes to the actual game of football, how many owners you think can get on a chalkboard and draw up an under defense? I'll tell you what 11 personnel or 12 personnel is, or I'm going to show you video, Mr. Such and Such, of 10 offensive linemen. You tell me, like, which ones should we draft? Like, I mean, most of those guys, that's not their area of expertise. So what they're doing now, and this is where I think the NFL has to be very careful, they're hiring guys in positions of power based on the format they use in corporate America. So you're getting a lot of analytics hires, not a lot of football hires. And, you have to be careful with that because football isn't analytics. It's not just percentages. It's about real experience. It's about being able to fall back on how the game flow is going and make football decisions, not make numbers decisions. And, so I think that's playing a big part of it because now it's really about being a master at the technology. Can you upload this and can you, put this together and present it this way? And, those are the guys getting a lot of the opportunities, not the guys that can actually go out there and coach damn football. So, listen, when your environment is pivoting and evolving, you're going to have to make a choice. Either just be you, which I always respect that, or you got to go out here and figure out how to use, all of this new technology that's dominating and dictating, the interactions inside NFL organizations.
We were talking earlier about the beauty of the game of football and being able to pivot at the right time certainly is one of those things. Is it easier? It's interesting. That Super Bowl year, the year before, if I'm not mistaken, was Dungy, and then it was Gruden the year after. To you, is there a better way to have? Is it better to have a defensive-minded head coach or an offensive-minded head coach? Does it matter one way or the other to you?
Well, I just think when you look at Tampa, that was about resources. You know, when Tony was the head coach, all the money was spent on defense.
Sure,
So
right.
look at who we
Okay.
had on offense. We didn't have anybody making any money on offense. Then when
Right.
Gruden came in, you know, then they brought in Ricky Dudley and Joe Jurevicius and Keenan McCardell and Thomas Jones and Michael Pittman. You know, we brought in all of these pieces and we spent the money on offense. And so now we have more balance. You know,
Right.
whereas before, hell, I mean, I damn near was walking to work, and you know all the defensive guys is riding by in the new fancy cars. So I think that's what changed. You know, if Dungy would have stayed, I still say this: Tampa probably wins multiple Super Bowls before the one we got with Brady. But you know, the Glazers, they made the decision, they got their championship. Ultimately, they saw that from a sustainability module, that might not have been the right move. You know, because I really think that they had an opportunity to become like the Rooney family. If they would have just had a little more patience and kept Dungy, you know, maybe Mike Tomlin is the one that, you know, replaces Tony, because Tomlin was on our staff. You know, when he was grooming coaches, you think Herman Edwards, when he became a head coach, Lovie Smith became a head coach, Rod Marinelli became a head coach, Mike Tomlin became a head coach, Raheem Morris became a head coach. Like all of those were guys that were there in the building.
Right.
So, I mean, we had the right group, but, you know, hey, it won a Super Bowl, so you can't say it didn't work. But sometimes just because you get instant success doesn't mean that it's the best long-term decision. And so I would have loved to see how the resume of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers looks different if they had just stuck with Tony.
Talk to me a little bit about my guy Sam Howell. Now I know you're high on him. That's if Washington hits on Sam Howell, then they're heading in the right direction. If they don't, then you know where that means they're starting over again.
Yeah, and I thought, and this is the one thing I don't necessarily trust about Washington is Ron Rivera. You know, and not to say that he's not a great coach, but he's not a guy that understands the quarterback position at all.
Yeah.
You spent, and hey, that's not his area of expertise. So it's not me criticizing him. It's the truth. The truth doesn't have emotions. It's just the truth.
That's
Because no coach that understands that position would have gone to Heineke when Wentz got hurt. I mean, it was a perfect opportunity to give Sam Howell a 8, 9, 10 game stretch to go out and gain experience. Not to prove to you can he play, because you shouldn't have drafted him if you didn't think he could play, but to gain valuable experience so that now coming into this year, he had successes and failures and been in late game situations and, you know, just some of the things that no matter how much you prepare a quarterback for, he still has to go through them himself. So I think that was a huge misstep, you know, by Rivera, simply because they had gotten a full season of Heineke the year before and were not impressed, which is why they went out and traded for Wentz in the first place. So to go back to Heineke, to me, just was wasting reps. As I allow why Heineke is now in Atlanta with the Falcons, right? He's not there. So you basically wasted all those reps that Sam Howell could have gotten. So now you have Howell, new coordinator. I know EB very well. He loves Sam. You know, when he got the job, I said, hey, man, I had Howell number one in that draft class. And, you know, he likes him because Sam's got something about him. You know, he's not going to throw the football the farthest. He's not going to run the fastest 40. But if the organization has patience with him and continues to surround him, you know, with better personnel, man, that kid is a winner, man. I'm just telling you, I know it when I see it. I like that kid. He's going to be a good player for Washington if Rivera don't mess it up.
When all the weapons left in Carolina that year, the second year, you know, they asked him to do a ton of running, and it feels like he got knocked for that. And I'm not sure I understand why coaching staff says, hey, we need you to do this. He probably is thinking, it's not really what I want to do, but it's what we need to do. Feels like he should get credit for manning up and doing what was best for the team, no?
So he did everything that most guys don't do now. You know, he didn't opt out at the end of the year. He participated. He played when he was hurt in a year where he knew the draft was coming up. Like, all of the things that you can't teach, that you can't coach into the makeup of the guy at that position, he has. And that's what I love about him. The production is there over 3 years, not just 1 year. You know, a la Kenny Pickett. I mean, Sam did it multiple years. When he was surrounded by NFL caliber athletes, a lot of people had projected him as the first pick in the draft, as the Heisman favorite. And then, as you mentioned, a lot of that talent graduated and left Chapel Hill. And, you know, look at what Chapel Hill is now. Obviously, there was a significant drop-off between what was coming behind it. So, I'm a big Sam Howell fan. You know, I think it's going to be really good. The one thing I would preach is patience, because he didn't get those reps last year that he should have gotten. So, you know, just remember, he's still a guy with only one start.
How much will those reps have helped him, knowing that it ended up being a new offense anyway?
Well, tremendously, because just the live game stuff, the learning how to prioritize my time management from week to week as we change opponents, and I have to unlearn what I just experienced and learn, you know, the new defense and what their habits are, and, you know, being in the game and being able to recall in 3rd and 4 to 6 on the left hash. You know, anytime the field tackle is in the 3 technique, they're probably bringing field pressure. Like, just being able to be in game and have the classroom come to those live moments. You need reps to really get comfortable at that. You know, you hear older quarterbacks talk about the game slows down. That's what they mean. It's taking what I'm seeing in the classroom and being able to manage the emotions and the ups and downs that go on in a live game and still process and recall the information and then execute.
What is the biggest thing that you've taken from your playing days, from your coaching days, that you use in your professional life now?
Staying emotionally even, understanding that things happen in the moment. That singular occurrence very rarely dictates success and failure. It's how you handle it. And so when I'm analyzing and evaluating as an analyst, I'm always looking from a macro standpoint, not a micro. Like, how is this going to impact what they're going to do moving forward? And I think that's a unique advantage I have, because you had to go through it and be there to really have that, you know, be a part of your evaluation process. You know, the one thing I give a lot of people credit for in the media is they generally stick to their strengths. If they're an analytics person, which a lot of people can be analytical, like that's all, and that's where they stay. Like, I'm unique because I played at the highest level, I coached at the highest level, and I graduated from the Harvard of the South, Tulane. So I have analytic in me. You know, I'm just able to not rely on it at the levels of some others because I have other things to fall back on.
To be well-rounded is the key. I appreciate the time today. This was fantastic.
Man, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
And go Commanders.
We need a good year. Need a good year. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
See you later. No problem.